Hey John,
How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm really excited to talk to you today and learn a little bit about AEM, what you're doing and how you're impacting really the entire equipment space in terms of not only innovative solutions, but job site, construction, agriculture, and I think a good start is just hearing a little bit about you, AEM. Give us a rundown.
Sure. I guess first, thanks to you and Morey for having me on. I mean, this is an exciting time in our industry, and you said you want to hear what's going on. I don't know if we have that much time. There's a lot going on in this space, and it's kind of wild, right? But I think today I can talk about for those that don't know who AEM is and kind of our role in the industry, and then we'll kind of dive into some technology stuff. So AEM, so the Association of Equipment Manufacturers. So we're a trade association that's been around for a little over 125 years. A couple founding members, more on the agriculture side, way back at I don't know what that put us in the late 1800s, right? So, we have just over 1,000 members covering 5 industry sectors: off-road or off-highway, as we say sometimes, industry sectors. So agriculture, forestry, and then construction, mining, utility, and the construction and utility space is what I'm responsible for within the association.
And when it comes to, you say over 1,000 members, is that like individual companies that are members? So over 1,000 companies?
Yeah, 1,000 member companies. We actually just hit a record, our most members ever, but just over 1,000 member companies. So fitting into 4 different member categories. So we call them whole good, which are the big yellow iron, tractors you see in the field, stuff like that. Portable, which would be trailers, hand tools, and then component suppliers, which is kind of self-explanatory from, electronic devices to engines and tires, and then service providers, companies that provide a service to the industry. So add all those together and we got a pretty robust covering, I guess primarily North America, but also obviously not everybody, but a lot of companies are doing business worldwide. So
so it's just a melting pot of all the big players in the industry coming together. And what are some of the things that group of just all the different players focus on, and how does AEM facilitate some of those things?
You said big players, big, medium, small, everybody in between, right? So we kind of use the tagline of our members make the equipment that builds, powers, and feeds the world. So kind of without us, I don't know, I guess you'd be hungry and homeless. I don't know, I think that's kind of with no internet. But so it's kind of like that equipment is kind of core and essential to our well-being and to the quality of life. So so what we're doing, I mean, we kind of say that a lot of times like AEM just helps our members do business and do it more effectively and make their customers, so the end user, the equipment owner, more effective. So we have a team in Washington, D.C., working on policy advocacy efforts. Sorry, I guess I missed that part. We're headquartered in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So just about 100 people or so like that in Milwaukee, and then we have a team of 8, 9, 10, something like that in DC. Some people might know us from the trade shows we own. So we own ConExpo ConAg. That just happened in March in Las Vegas. It's a wild year because we just had Utility Expo in Louisville like a month and a half ago. So, and then we co-own a show called World of Asphalt. We have a part of Commodity Classic, which is our show we're involved in the agriculture side, as well as help some other brands, in other countries internationally with their shows. So that's the way we connect our members with their customers. I talked about our advocacy efforts a little bit. We have a big role in like the market data, if you kind of lump all of that under one umbrella. So we do market share statistics reports to help our members understand, where geographically they're strong, what products are increasing in total volume, decreasing. We kind of call that the private piece of it. We kind of call that you got to participate in the and then there's the business intelligence side of it. And then there's the business intelligence side, the charts on residential building up, down, residential up, down, kind of where investments going, and help our members plan the outlook.
So it's if I'm understanding this right, you're not only providing specific data about each member company to them, you're also providing data about the industry as well, and then you're also creating spaces for all players in the industry to get together, collaborate, talk about policy, trends, all that stuff. So it's like an all-in-one. Hey, you can get information about the industry, about the market, but we can also provide you information about how you guys are specifically doing across the world.
That's right. So there's one piece I missed. I'll come back to that in a second. But yeah, that if we talk about that BI piece for a minute, right? It's you have to understand, where the industry is going. Should we be increasing, in commercial buildings? Should we be selling more equipment in that? And then you need to be able to benchmark yourself, essentially against your competitors, against the products. Because if you're saying like, hey, this, let's talk about something going down, which is kind of really residential buildings going down, a little bit over COVID with material decrease and stuff like that, right? So if you're still killing it, that's awesome. You're doing better than the market is, right? But I mean, vice versa on that. If you're thinking, hey, we sell a lot of, equipment into commercial building, and you see that going up by, I don't know what it is, let's say, 5-10%. And if you're not keeping up with that, that might not be bad. Nobody might be keeping up with that. It might just be that the equipment isn't completely going into that, right? So it's kind of like a unique, kind of two-headed piece of that, right? It's like, where's the whole market going, and then where are you going? And that piece that I missed, so the what we call our safety and product leadership piece, and that's where we really dive into product-specific or industry-specific challenges, and pull some of our members together that make either the same product or sell into the same market. Probably the one that is kind of maybe top people's mind now, and it's kind of on that regulatory side of it. So if you look at some of the engine emission regulations that are going on primarily in California, like it's an interesting topic to talk about, whether it's achievable or not in timeline and who's pushing for what. And it's kind of it's an interesting, we get our members together to come up with like a collective voice for the industry.
Yeah, and well, I mean, you said it best just now. It's like, whatever happens with that, the most successful outcome is going to be through collaboration, and collaboration through all the different players in the industry.
Right.
And to have an association like AEM to bring everyone together and facilitate those conversations, like, it's going to happen. Some regulations are always going to increase and change and be adjusted. It's like, as long as we can centralize the discussion and get all the appropriate parties involved, the outcome's going to be much better. And so, whatever happens, it's like AEM's there to facilitate.
And if you think about, if we go back, I don't even know how long this would be, 20, 30 years, if we talk about some safety regulations that are in place, right? So our ROPS, a rollover protection system on any equipment now, right? Those weren't there. Then OSHA, other regulators got involved and said, hey, this needs to be more safe. The industry would never disagree with that. Like, we want our customers, the operators to, be safe, go home to their families every night, right? Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, well, maybe we can't engineer a whole ROPS system and keep the same visibility by next year. So it's kind of like, let's get all of our members together to like understand the engineering challenges and come up with like a collective voice that says, hey, we're all working towards this, but let's give us the next couple of years before it's like, actually like mandated and regulated.
Yeah, okay, so really trying to plan out even if something's been identified as something the industry has to do, coming out with a plan of how best do we roll this out, right, so it doesn't negatively impact the industry in X, Y, Z way.
Right.
But tell me a little bit about, you mentioned the OEM and the different manufacturers. So when it comes to OEMs, are you guys also bringing in the upstream and the downstream of the industry into some of these conversations? So you get the tier 1 suppliers to the OEMs, you get the actual like construction management companies, and tell me a little bit about the widespread involvement that way.
Yeah, so I think there's two different halves to that, right? So there's everybody heard about supply chain challenges during COVID, and whether it was just a container ship stuck at port because they couldn't get them off, or the workers couldn't be in the factory to make a widget, whatever it was, there was all of those constraints, right? So the understanding the sustainability of our members' supply chain has been a big initiative with that, right? Mm-hmm. Whether that's being able to source parts forever, having the workers to make them forever, right? Quote unquote forever. Yeah. Or if it's some of those regulations that are hitting what chemicals and materials are in those parts, we're addressing basically all of that stuff, right? So again, it's like, if there's something that some group is concerned with a toxicity of it or something like that in a material, or it's just becoming more scarce, and they said, hey, you need to get this XYZ thing out. It's like, okay, great, but we still need, you know, some heat flame retardant material in this area. So like, give us time to find a replacement for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's more on the, you know, before the machine leaves the factory back through the supply chain. I think the other thing you asked was kind of like the rest of the value chain, the downstream part of it, right? So the voice of customer, I think we kind of mentioned that, you know, term before, you know, it's like, what is the contractor or farmer, I guess, in the field dealing with as a challenge? And then how does AEM kind of position ourselves, you know, between our members and them with some other partner and user partner associations to help bring that message back. So it's like, you know, a lot of companies should essentially be innovating something valuable to their customers, not just because they can make it, right? So I think that's something that, you know, you guys are, you know, doing well, looking at what the customer needs are versus just like, hey, we can make this, let's do it.
I think that's a good segue into something that I want to discuss, because I almost view a function of AEM as like the Apple Watch of the industry, right? You're keeping the pulse, you know, of what's going on, keeping tabs on things. And so when it comes to the, you know, changing landscape of the industry and all the innovation that's coming out, what are some of the innovative trends you're seeing as, you know, what's rising up as valuable solutions, you know, the wheat from the chaff type of thing with this industry, you know, given your involvement with all these different areas?
So maybe before we even step to that, I think you got to look at like what's changing that's going to drive a trend, right? So if we think about, everybody talks about, we can go back to our supply chain issue, right, of what kind of COVID impacted, I mean, like workforce. Like there's been a shortage of workforce, of workers coming into, you know, our industries for years, right? Whether that's in the manufacturing facility or on the job site or a technician at a dealer, right? So it's like, we can't get people fast enough. I don't know, I think I saw 600,000 open jobs in the construction industry, right? So some of that might not necessarily be construction that AEM covers, it might be like, you know, the trades like drywallers and stuff like that, right? But still, who cares? If it's half that, that's still crazy, right? So it's like, if we can't get people fast enough, how can we utilize technology to make the people, you know, growing the crops, building the buildings and roads more efficient with what they have, right? I hate the saying when people are saying like, I want to do more with less. Like, I don't want less. Like, give me the same amount and let me do way more. Right? So it's like, if I have a piece of equipment, I'm going to own an excavator anyway. If I can use that to be more efficient by implementing some technology, I mean, if we just take like a grade control system, for example, right? If I'm running a dozer and I don't know exactly where I need to grade, I might need to go do it again and do rework, right? If I can do it precise the first time, now not only does that save fuel, which hits a sustainability goal, right? Like less carbon output, it also frees up that operator to do something else. If I don't have enough operators, this girl's not doing the same thing twice. So it's like, now what else can I do? Well, now you can go create the next mile of road or whatever it would be. So it's like, how do we think about the challenges that are creating these, let's say conflicts, I don't know if that's the right word, like the impacts, the challenges in the industry, and then what technologies are coming in that can essentially kind of offset those.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think the whole planning out of a job site for efficiency, I mean, we were talking about earlier how a massive time suck is simply moving material and equipment that you're not using out of the way so you can get a separate project done. And even planning just operationally at a job site, like if you don't need, you know, 5 extra people to help you just move stuff out of the way, you know, you can't find those 5 people right now. It's not you know, like you said, do more with the same amount. It's like you're not removing your current staff at all. You're actually elevating the results that your current staff are able to achieve,
100%.
which is so cool.
I mean, it's like you want to, society wants to continue to upskill, right? It's like a lot of the repetitive, mundane jobs are what will be displaced, I guess, initially with technology, but those people won't. Either those people aren't there, or they need to do something else. I mean, it's like, we walked through your factory earlier today, right? So it's like, you watch the machines, placing, the components. That's maybe not possible for a human to even do that.
Yeah.
So there's that. Plus now you have those people that are there, maybe not hunched over, with having a back problem later. They're monitoring everything and watching for any fails.
Yeah.
All right, so you think about that in the job site, right? If you could do things, with technology, you could even bring it all the way back to like operator comfort, right? Technologies, right? Like 10 years ago, there's no air conditioning in the cabin, it was 10 years ago longer than that, right?
Yeah.
So you're making that operator more comfortable. But now it's like, if we don't have an operator to do something, or we don't have somebody that can, monitor this, it's like, what else could we have them be doing that's actually more productive and more value add?
Yeah. Well, I don't know a single person who can tell me that every single day of their workday, they got everything done that they wanted. Like that just doesn't happen, right? So it's like, we help optimize, make people more efficient. It just creates more bandwidth to get the stuff done you actually want to get done right now.
Yeah.
And I love that when it comes to construction and even like the ag space, when it comes to harvest time. It's like, if you miss a single day, during harvest, or rather even during planting, your harvest is completely tarnished.
Right.
And that just, even like little stats like that, little improvements is huge.
And that leads into kind of the, planning downtime or reducing unplanned downtime, right, on equipment. Because if you have, say, a crane in the middle of a job site that's moving a bunch of material around or doing something, if that goes down, everything else can stop. So now not only do you have the crane operator waiting for that to be fixed, now everybody else is waiting for the next, it's a whole trickle down effect,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, if you can, kind of get ahead of it, monitor the data, understand how to be proactive with things and take care of some of those, whether it's routine maintenance or kind of preventing a catastrophic failure, right? And get ahead of it and do it over the weekend, or do it, at night when nobody else is on the job site, so it doesn't really delay the whole project. Like, that's unbelievably beneficial.
So this has been super fun because we're talking all about awesome things we want to do.
Yeah.
But with all these innovative trends and aspirations with technology and optimizing the job site comes challenges, obviously. So can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges that are being learned the hard way even in the industry as innovation and technologies try to get integrated into these pieces of equipment?
Yeah, so, I was gonna update myself, but I don't even know if I ever really used a fax machine. But like, if you think about like back then, right? If you were the first person with one, like, that does nobody any good. You can't fax anybody else, right? It's kind of like, I got an email first, right? Like, no, like, well, nobody's responding to you. So you got to think about how when you're trying to implement some of these technologies, and if it's real value, let's say you're using telematics data. You say you get a new machine, super robust telematics field or feed, and you don't have somebody in the back office like monitoring that data, it does nobody any good, right? So it's kind of like, you need to put all of the pieces in place to fully implement the technology, right? So I think one of the biggest challenges is understanding the full undertaking of what it might take to realize the entire value of a technology, right? Like telematics, machine control, whatever it would be.
Yeah.
And then putting the right people and the right tools in place to do that. Now you're thinking to yourself like, well, now I need to hire somebody else that's gonna monitor data. Maybe not, because that might be somebody that's not, operating the second piece of equipment because your first one's more efficient, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like they're moving those pieces around and kind of orchestrating that job site and upskilling the people behind, as we talked about before. So I think the challenge with that, though, just to kind of reiterate that, is like, you can't just, acquire something and just think it's just gonna work. Like, you gotta put the right processes in place and really understand, how to fully integrate that.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest challenges, is people, I think they're just gonna realize that ROI like instantly.
Yeah, well, it is an ecosystem with so many different critical components, and if the entire ecosystem isn't integrated and working together, the whole thing's gonna fail.
The whole thing.
And
Right.
so that's I really like the point of, you gotta understand end-to-end solution-wise how this is actually gonna work. So what are some of the problems, and you mentioned mentioned this a little bit earlier, but what are some of the problems that people are looking to solve with some of these innovative technologies that are being introduced?
I think, this kind of gets into a point that, I think I'd like to touch on it, or maybe we mentioned a little bit before. It's kind of like, I have a solution, I'm looking for a problem, right? Like, we can't go that direction, right? So you have to understand, and all job sites are different, construction at least, a lot of, farms are different. Think about row crop versus strawberry picking, or let's talk about wine, right? Like grape picking, right? That's more up my alley. But, but like, you think about those are all different things, so they all have different problems.
Yeah.
So I think if you're, a contractor or a farmer, and you got to think about what your specific challenge could be, and if it is, getting enough workers, we kind of talked about that already, right? If it is, I have a goal of reducing idle time across my fleet. It's like, I know I want to reduce idle time by 10%. How do I do that, and what do I put in place to make that happen, right? So it's a little bit different kind of mentality, I think, than a lot of people go with, is sometimes they even if the technology is available in the marketplace and it has, it'll tell you what it'll solve, it's like, is that even your problem?
Yeah.
Like, look backwards and figure out where can we get more efficient, and then find a solution to help you with that.
Yeah, I really like what you're saying, because it's, the technology nowadays it inspires a lot of cool ideas.
Yeah.
Right? And an idea is only as good as the problem it's going to solve. And if you start out with an idea, you're just going to try to implement it because you think it's a cool idea or a cool technology. You told me the story of the TV in the fridge.
Sure.
Right? It's like, oh, we can put a TV in the fridge. We can make a Bluetooth toaster. Like, I mean, it's
Totally cool to stand there and watch my bagel cook before it pops out or something like that, right? It's like, I don't need to go away and then have it buzz my phone to come back. Like, it's like, is this really solving a problem, right?
Yeah.
Just because you can jam those two things together, it's like, is this really valuable to anybody?
So getting to the root of the problem first, and then looking at what are maybe the 5 different ways we could solve this.
Right.
And then start to understand what's going to be best to maybe even solve a whole host of problems that I'm experiencing.
Right.
Yeah.
Then you get into the whole communication across the value chain, right? So if you're a, general contractor or subcontractor, it's like, how is your or if you get paid for your production, right? It's like, how do you communicate that you did that, without having somebody come out and look at the job site? Maybe they're not available to do that, right? So it's like, how do you share that data stream, or the as-built information and stuff like that with everybody else that's involved in the project? Maybe there's a change on something, and now that needs to communicate with somebody else who also needs to change their plan to accommodate that. It's like, what are all of those things, and how can we get everybody talking? Because you're all going to the ultimate goal, right? Whether that's to building a road, harvesting corn, whatever it is, right? I mean, we all want to get to the same place. It's just that the communication breakdown is complicated, and until we can get like everybody kind of like talking, and when I say talking, I'm almost talking like data feed talking, like not me calling you, Mark, and being like, guess what, I paved that road, right? I mean, like that, sure, that's great too, but I think it's more of that data versus just like even verbal communication.
So can you provide a little bit of an example of how you've seen the collaboration that AEM provides help better identify or even solve problems in the industry?
Yeah, so we did, we've released a couple, white papers, position papers over the last couple of years. I think I'll talk a little bit about a couple we did last year. One was called The Future of Food Production, and another one was called Future of Building. A little shameless plug here, if you go to aem.org/insights, you can see all of our stuff there. But the future of building talked about the 10 trends that'll impact a job site, right? So some of that was, equipment might move towards battery electric versus a diesel engine, right? I think we had some talk about autonomous equipment in there.
Sure.
Data, machine data, telematics data, cybersecurity was also brought up in that. Like there's these different topics, and nobody's going to completely solve one of those themselves, right? Especially if you're talking, we're not at an autonomous job site yet. I think we could probably, for a different podcast, whether we will get there or whether we know nobody on there, right? I think there's different thoughts on that.
Yeah.
But everybody has a mixed fleet, right? They got brand A, B, C, X, Y, Z, right? And if those brands, don't understand how to communicate with each other, those different pieces of equipment, how is everything gonna move, and go back to that orchestrating everything, perfectly, right? So it's a little bit different than on road, because your car is probably sensing where the side line, middle line, on the road is, has a map on it, kind of understands what's going on.
And I'm not gonna use a car, I'm not gonna use one car to go to the grocery store and then another car to go to the sports goods store.
That's right.
Right? I'm gonna use my same car that I own to do both tasks.
Right.
When in construction, it's like, I need 10 different pieces of equipment.
I'm not gonna dig a hole with a dozer.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, yeah, it's a lot of stuff going on. And then depending on where the work's being done, you might have to watch out for, traffic driving really close next to you, pedestrians, like what all of this stuff that's kind of, going on around the job site. So our members getting together to either work on standards, whether it's communication standard, terminology standards, a big thing, and then how everything can kind of communicate and work together to ultimately be able to just kind of implement that and benefit the customer long run.
Yeah, that's great. Is there when you look at the different business segments of the customers, what are some of the ways that these technologies that we're talking about, efficiencies, innovation, how do those impact each different type of business segment within equipment manufacturer? So I'm thinking the maintenance and service, the rental, the direct sales. How are some of these technologies influencing all of those different businesses?
So I'm going to answer this question a little bit differently. We had a committee together a few years ago. I think we had 10 different titles, right? Like project owner, construction company owner, like project funder, call it that, right? Construction company owner, foreman, operator, fleet manager, like that. And then we had some technologies up there, it was like equipment data, stuff like that. We were like, which ones of these technologies should these titles care about? There's 15 people in the room, they put all of them for all of them. Which I was like, this is really helpful, guys, thanks. Right, but at the same time, you're 100% right. Because if you're a project funder, you should want that crew you hired to implement some technology because it's probably gonna save you money.
Yeah.
If you're a foreman on the job site, you probably want them to implement some technology because it makes the job site safer. It might make, if you're a fleet manager, it'll prevent downtime of equipment, right? So there's all of this stuff, and it's that whole communication and everybody understanding the value, the actual tangible value might be different per title, but it applies across all of the different ways to do it.
So it's not just interoperability between different types of assets. It's interoperability between all the different people,
all the different stakeholders in the project.
There you go. Cool. Well, hey, I have really appreciated this conversation. I've got one more question for us.
Yep.
When it comes to AEM and the good work you guys are doing, aligning the industry to get the players involved, how can other equipment manufacturers get more involved? How can they participate in this great organization?
Yeah, so love to have anybody, right? I mean, even if it's just reaching out to me personally or anybody on our team with questions, kind of where the industry is going, you get to our website, aem.org. Otherwise, you can find me on LinkedIn at John Summers. Otherwise, we're in Milwaukee, so if you're in the area and want to grab a beer, I'm around.
Awesome. That's great. And what would you say is the top 3 benefits of a manufacturer actually belonging to this association?
So it's actually really funny you just asked that because it's kind of the same thing where it's we can say what our services are and depending on who you are and what your role is in the organization, it's something different. Right, so if you want to get in front of some customers at our trade shows, if you want to understand where different areas of the market are going, the trends, from the business intelligence side, webinars that are available to our members, and there's a ton of good information. If you want to get involved, on the Hill in Washington, D.C., we did a construction event out there this year. We're planning on the agriculture side next May to get in front of lawmakers, regulators, policymakers, tell the story of the industry. We can help facilitate that. So I think it really depends on I'm not a big person on what's your title, but what's your responsibility and your role within your organization. Can try and help connect those dots.
Awesome. Well, John, thank you so much for your time today. Great meeting you and learning more about AEM.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Morey, bringing connection to life.